So the Tipsy books are set in Charleston, and they follow Tipsy Collins, who's this divorced clairvoyant mom trying to rebuild her life in Charleston, dating, dealing with her ex, rebuilding her finances, her own personal family trauma that she's dealing with, all these different things. And while she's doing that, she's solving these ghostly mysteries. The inspiration moment for that one was I was driving over the Ravenel Bridge, which is this big bridge in Charleston. I was thinking about the idea of till death do us part. And maybe I was just kind of in not a great mood thinking about this. I was like, death do us part. I was like, well, what if you couldn't part at death? What if you were stuck with this person for all eternity? And so that kind of drove the idea for the Tipsy books. She moves into a house that's haunted by the ghosts of a married couple that hate each other. And they've been stuck in this house together for 100 years.
Welcome to Signs from the Other Side with Fern Ronay. I'm your host, Fern Ronay, and this is the place to share stories of signs and messages received from the other side. Real quick before we get started, if you enjoy reading about signs and if you enjoy fiction like Bridget Jones and Sex and the City, you might enjoy my books, Better in the Morning and Better Believe It. And if you like this podcast, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe in Apple Podcasts and tell a friend too. Thank you so much for listening, and on to the show. Stephanie Alexander is a lawyer, mother, wife, and author of 8 books, including the Cracked Slipper series, the Tipsy Collins series, and the Southern women's fiction novel Mean Low Water, which Kirkus called, and if you know anything about this business, this is huge, a well-crafted tale of friendship and discovery. Congratulations. Hi.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Of course. First of all, congratulations on what a Kirkus gave it the Get It, which they don't give everyone a Get It. I think only 30%.
Yes, thank you.
I know. It's so nerve-wracking being a writer.
I know. You never know. You're opening yourself up. It's like people criticizing your children.
Right.
Constantly.
It's terrible.
You never know.
Right. It's terrible. But lucky for you, you have gotten wonderful feedback. And it's so funny because we also have to then promote the book and be on TikTok and all of this other stuff.
Oh my God, it's so much.
But yeah. TikTok is how I found you. So you posted a TikTok that came up in my For You page that said, where are all the Gen X millennial fantasy, paranormal romance ladies, the ones who love magic but want some substance? Yeah. I was like, yes, I have to follow her. And then I clicked the link and it turns out we have the same publisher.
Oh, that's so crazy. Yeah, that's such a thing for me because I see how people seem to be loving all this romantic fantasy stuff, but a lot of it I read and I'm just like, look, maybe I'm just too old for it. I don't know, but it's just come on, I need a little more
right.
Substance.
That's why I love this because I'm like, I love that we're looking for women our age who want people been through things and what they learned from them, and then also with these magical elements. So that's what I loved. Yes,
totally.
Absolutely. So your latest book and the Tipsy Collins books take place in South Carolina, but you grew up in the D.C. suburbs, right?
I did. I grew up in the Maryland suburbs of D.C., in the D.C. area, that's a big, difference, whether you grew up in Virginia or grew up in Maryland.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in the Maryland suburbs, but I came to the College of Charleston in the mid-90s. So and then I moved back to DC for about 10 years, but I've spent most of my adult life in Charleston at this point.
Had you grown up going to Charleston?
No, I'd never been before at all. I just decided I wanted to go south. I wanted to be near the beach. I mean, look, it was not some kind of mature educated decision. I want to go to the beach, and then I went to Charleston to look at school, and it was, the College of Charleston's an awesome school, but it was really the city itself that I kind of that I really fell in love with. So it's just a beautiful, magical place. It has its issues, as every place does, and I try to kind of touch on some of that in my work, some of the the not as good sides of Charleston, but it is an awesome place to live, and my kids have all grown up here, and it's a great place to grow up. So
it's a beautiful city. I did a girls trip with my friends over 10 years ago, and we loved it. Feels like the perfect Southern town for 4 girls who grew up in New York and New Jersey, but it felt like we're in the South, and it was so pretty. And it sounds like you instantly fell, it sounds like there might be some past life thing. When you came to Charleston, did you feel just you loved it so much?
Yeah, I was just I really was just in awe of the College of Charleston campus is so beautiful. I mean, it sounds silly, but like the things that you fall in love with, like the Spanish moss. I was like, really? Like that's really a thing? You know, like 18-year-old me, I was like, whoa, that's really a thing. And then just walking around the Battery, where all the biggest mansions are generally down on the Battery near the water in downtown. And I was just like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And I did grow up going to the beach a lot. I mean, my family had a house in Bethany Beach, Delaware. So I did grow up going to the beach a lot. So I wanted to be near the beach. And the beaches here are lovely. They're beautiful. So that was also like an added plus. And, going on the boat all the time. And it's just, people live like, it's more, they say like a slower pace, but it really is less of a rat race.
So it sounds like you went to college and then you spent 10 years outside, and it sounds like you wanted to probably couldn't wait to go back.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those kind of things where I kind of went back to, I moved back to DC for grad school and thinking like, oh, I'll move back, I'll go to grad school and then I'll move back to Charleston. And then like 10 years later, I was like, wait, why am I still living here? Because my ex-husband, I met up there and our kids were born there. And I was just like, why are we still living here? So then we moved back. We moved to Charleston.
And then you went to law school after that. So you went to grad school for something else, right?
I did. I have a master's degree in like sociology and public policy, kind of with a focus on women's issues. So that was what I did early in my career. And then I was a stay-at-home mom for about 8 years. And then I went through divorce and, I had to kind of like rebuild my life. And so a master's degree in public policy is not doing too much for you in the Charleston area. I mean, there's not a lot. Like I could have, gone back to working for nonprofits or whatever in the DC area, but it just wasn't helpful. So I'd always kind of wanted to go to law school, and I just was like, all right, I need to like rebuild my life. And so that's kind of what I did. It was kind of crazy. I think back on it now and I'm like, whoa, how did I manage to do that? But it's been like 10 years and it was a great decision.
Were you working and going to law school?
Yeah, I was. I had my 3 kids. They were like later elementary school, middle school age when I was in law school. I think my oldest had just started high school as I was like finishing. I was doing writing stuff and then I was doing a lot of editing and stuff for clients. And then I was also like clerking at a law firm.
Jeez.
So yeah, it was a lot. It really was. Now I look back on it, I'm like, whoa. But I guess I was 10 years younger. I had like more energy.
Right. Exactly.
You're doing that now.
So
and I'm
true.
like, oh no,
It's so true.
Yeah.
I love the inspiration for the Crack Slipper series. You wrote those before law school, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
That Crack Slipper series was my first series, and I started writing the first Crack Slipper book when I was still a stay-at-home mom. My kids were really little. Like I think my youngest had just turned like 1 when I started writing those books, and I'd always been like a voracious reader, but I had never really written fiction myself. But I started having that feeling like I was looking for a certain something and I wasn't finding it. Like, again, I wanted something fantastical, but with some like depth to it. And I really wasn't finding that. And so I had this idea. I remember I was driving in my car with my daughters who were little at the time, listening to like XM radio Kids Bop or something like that. And I remember thinking like, God, this is so ridiculous. Like happily ever after. I'm like, she probably like died in childbirth. Like literally the thought that I had. And then I was like, ooh, maybe I could like explore this idea of like what Cinderella's like life really would have been like in like a patriarchal environment.
Right.
If I could have a patriarchal like Renaissance-y type of environment. And that's where this idea for the series came from. So it's kind of like Game of Thrones meets Bridgerton, central Cinderella character. And it really starts like after the ball. So it starts after the ball and like then the series, it became this trilogy, kind of like a magnum opus, and it follows her from the time she's 18 until she's about, at the end of the last book, I guess she's about 36. And just like the journey of her life and how she deals with her terrible marriage that's just atrocious. But she can't divorce her husband. Like Anne Boleyn divorced Henry VIII. She was just stuck with him. So she has to figure out how to like live with him and kind of come into her own as a person and balance her, of course there's like a forbidden love affair, so she's got to balance her forbidden love affair with being a parent and being an educated woman in this patriarchal society and kind of like trying to do good with her position. And then there's all kinds of like magical scheming and stuff like that going on.
I love it. It sounds like your graduate degree might have like infiltrate like
yeah. And I worked in women's health and international development in my earlier career after grad school. And yeah, I was always, I always identified as a feminist. Like I always did, even like, I hate it sounds
Before it was
like,
cool.
before that was like cool thing to do. Like I always kind of identified that way. And so, yeah, I really wanted to put something out that has kind of like, that had like feminist themes, but like didn't beat people over the head with it because one might get scared off by that word. So yeah, but that's kind of the goal, is to like think about like these fairy tales that we all kind of as women like grow up with, and we all think we're going to reach this point where everything's going to be wonderful and we're going to be so happy. And then what do you do when like that doesn't happen? When your big dream that you had that was going to make your life so wonderful kind of falls apart. And, you're also dealing with your own stuff. Like the other thing I thought about a lot with that series was like, you had this Cinderella character who's lived in this she lost her parents. She's lived in this like abusive household. Like, she's been, by herself with just her terrible step family. Like, what would she have been like? And then all of a sudden she marries this guy she just met, and she's like on the national stage, and there's gonna be all these expectations of her, and like, what would that actually have been like for her?
It feels like nobody's ever explored her trauma. She had a traumatic childhood.
Like,
it's going to change you.
Like her ongoing like family dynamics with like her step
right.
and like dealing with like, family drama and just that kind of stuff. So
yes.
I really tried to like humanize her, but put her in this pretty complex, like fantastical kingdom that she exists in. She doesn't have any magical powers, but she's surrounded by like a world that's very magical.
I always say like everything has to happen the way it's meant to happen. So you wrote this series, and then it sounds like then you went to law school, and then you practice family law, right?
I do, yeah, predominantly 95% family court. I do some civil litigation stuff, but with just helping other attorneys in my firm. But yeah, I'm almost exclusively in the family court.
Did that inspire Tipsy Collins?
The Tipsy Collins series is kind of inspired by my own experiences going through divorce. And then also, as I became more enmeshed in the family court world, just the different things that I saw and dynamics that I saw with my clients. And look, as a family court attorney, you see like the craziest stuff. My husband is a psychiatrist, and I'm a family court attorney. And so we get like the wildest stuff that we see like every day.
Yeah.
And Charleston is it's a beautiful place, and people here like live life to the fullest. I mean, it's a very much like a kind of party town. People get themselves into married people are always like have the potential to like get themselves into like bad situations. So you see like the most scandalous stuff that everyone's doing. These people you think have these perfect lives, and they're so normal, and they're doing like the craziest things. And so, yeah, it's interesting, exhausting, like emotionally exhausting to deal with it. But believe me, it's interesting. It's eye-opening into like the human condition.
Definitely not dull, right?
Yeah.
It's ripe for stories, probably.
Totally, yeah. So the Tipsy books are set in Charleston, and they follow Tipsy Collins, who's this divorced clairvoyant mom who she's an artist. That's like her profession. And she's just been through like a terrible divorce. And so she's kind of trying to rebuild her life in Charleston, dating, dealing with her ex, rebuilding her finances and her career, just like, everything, her own personal like family trauma that she's dealing with, all these different things. And while she's doing that, she's like solving these ghostly mysteries. Like there's 4 books in the series, and each one has a distinct, like predominant ghostly mystery that kind of drives the plot. And her kind of the funny angle is that the inspiration moment for that one was I was driving over the Ravenel Bridge, which is this, big bridge in Charleston. And I was thinking about the idea of like till death do us part. And I was like, this was before I was married to my current husband, before I even met him. And maybe I was just kind of in like not a great mood thinking about this. I was like, death do us part. I was like, well, what if you couldn't part at death? Like, what if you were stuck with this person like for all eternity? And so that kind of drove the idea for the Tipsy books. Like she moves into a house that's haunted by the ghosts of a married couple that hate each other, and they've been stuck in this house together for like 100 years.
Right. That's what I loved reading, that she has to solve like what really happened with their deaths.
Yeah.
It's so clever, but I love that there's like so in my book, Better in the Morning, the protagonist is guided by her dead Italian grandparents, and it's like they're still the same as they were on
Yeah.
Earth. And that's what I loved about that. They're
Yeah,
still
well,
like
yeah,
this
and Tipsy
bickering
has
old couple.
Tipsy has an old, like her grandma, like is in her head too. Like she's like an old Southern woman and she's always like, giving her advice, like in the back, like her conscience kind of.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's like so fun to be able to play with that kind of stuff. And the married couple are like, they're from the 1920s. So that was also very funny. It's kind of like a time where it's easy to write like eccentric characters when they're like, I'm assuming like Italian grandparents, like that,
Right.
like lots of good, like eccentric characters, just like old, Southern people from the 1920s. It allows you to kind of lean into the funny, in some ways stereotypes, but
Yes.
it makes for good characters. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So your grandmothers were very significant in your life on both sides, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you're, I know on your mom's side, you said that there's like is it a fried chicken recipe?
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
describe it?
Yeah, that's like my favorite thing. So yeah, whenever I'm asked like what's my favorite food, it's my grandmother's fried chicken. So my grandmother actually she grew up in Maryland, but in like a very kind of country part of Maryland. Maryland is no longer really the South, but there are parts of it that seem kind of like the South. So she had this like pan fried chicken recipe that like she would stand there for hours to make like a big blade of chicken, but it would take like all day. And my mother does it. Like she will stand there, she has to turn each one in the pan and turn it and turn it and turn it and kind of keep it on a low heat. And like you end up with this, but it takes all day long and it's like the best.
Oh, so your other grandmother passed when you were 19, right?
Yeah.
And is she the one that you had such an intense dream about her?
Yeah, yes. And I feel like she emerges in my dreams like pretty regularly. It's kind of weird. And her house, she was the one who had the beach house in Bethany, and that also kind of like turns up in my dreams a lot. And yeah, I mean, I miss her a ton, and I really wish that I had been able to know her like as an adult. We had the same birthday actually. We were on the same day, and so she would have been 110 this year. Was born in 1915, and she was like one of these very intellectual women who was like kind of like a prisoner of the time that she grew up in. You know what I mean? Like she didn't have the opportunities, never went to college or anything like that, but she's just so smart, and she's the one who really kind of like got me into loving to read. And I really wish she could have read some of my books. I mean, so sometimes I feel like maybe she has,
yeah.
Yeah, she's
You're
like
on the right show to say it. I think she has.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's just, I don't know, sometimes I wake up when I have those dreams, you feel like that feeling like you want to hold on to it.
Yeah.
And, you can. And of course, as the day goes by, it feels a little less like intense. But when you first wake up, it's like she's just right there, like talking in my ear,
Right. So they always say like the difference between a visit and a dream is sometimes dreams can be upsetting, but that's because it's your subconscious working out things that you thought about during the day or thinking about. But a dream it's never scary. It's never, it's pure love. And so It feels real, like tactile. Like dreams kind of have that underwater feeling, but a visit is like, you can feel them, hear them, that it's tactile. That's what, so it sounds like it was. Yeah. She visits you, really.
And the last time, the last dream I had with her, she was young. I don't think I've ever had a dream like that with her before she was like my age or maybe even younger, which is kind of crazy. And, she never knew that I was a lawyer. And in this dream, she was like talking to me about lawyering. And it made me think like maybe somehow in some other place, she's like proud of me for that, for
Absolutely. Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about being young, that's so interesting because, they'll say like when we knew them on Earth, like I knew my grandparents as old. So like I could see them as old or I could see them as young. Like you could see them when they were their healthiest on Earth. Even if I didn't like in the 3-dimensional world know them at that time, it's still like the same soul.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
In that dream, she's like, I want her to see like the young me, maybe.
Yeah,
Right.
and we kind of look alike too. Of all of my grandparents, I probably look the most like her. So it's
Yeah,
just
you had the same birthday. You look like her. There's such a connection there.
yeah, yeah, it really is. And so it is, and it's weird how you can't really fully appreciate him. Of course, I was very sad when she passed away, but then you get older and you just really, I really wish I could have known her as like an adult knowing her.
Right.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
And like
It's
talk to
different.
her about her life and, the things that she went through and living through the depression and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, you just can't.
We asked my grandparents so many questions, and still I'm like, gosh, there's so much more like I think of that. I'm like, we never asked them that. And we asked them a ton. So I made my niece and nephew write down like questions for my parents, and we recorded them. Like, what was your first job? And like, what was the happiest day of your life? Like stuff like that. And we recorded it because I'm like, yes, they're still with us. Yes, it's not the same as being in a human body and talking to them when they're literally here on Earth. So it's very important. So you should have your kids ask your mom questions.
I should have them. And my mom is so funny. She cracks my kids up because she's always like tell them stories about like they always joke around about how she talks about all the boyfriends she had when she was they're like, oh my, all those boyfriends, like tell
I
stories.
love that. What was the inspiration for the Mean Low Water?
So when I moved to Charleston in the 90s, I did not know anyone when I came to the College of Charleston. And I was put into a suite, like it was like me and my roommate, and this girl's in my suite, and with a girl who was from a small town that's about an hour south of here, called Walterboro. And so I was put in a suite with this girl, and she had another friend that she grew up with who also like lived in our dorm, who ended up hating her roommate. So she practically lived in our suite. But they fully embraced me and like took me back to stay with their, families and in Walterboro, and like introduced me to all of their friends from home and like a bunch of guys that they were friends with. And like, I really loved and appreciated those friendships so much. And also the fact that because they took me in, during like time that was like, freshman year in college, it's like kind of scary. And of course it's really fun, but it's also like, I always describe freshman year in college as like, it's like the best of times and the worst of times, like,
Yes.
yeah, like you have so much fun,
true.
but you're also like kind of screwed up and it's a hard
Yes.
transition. And the two things that I loved about those people was one, they were the best storytellers, the funniest people ever, because they come from these small towns and I don't know, like there's something in the Southern character from a small town where people are just big storytellers. Everything's full of hyperbole and like so dramatic, but yet also like so fun and like interspersed with all these crazy like sayings that you would, you think like people actually talk like that, but they really do. And then also just noting the closeness of like their friends, because they grew up in this very small town for so long. Guys, girls, like they'd all dated each other, but they were still all like really close friends. And I hadn't really seen that to that extent, the way that they were. And I think you can really only have that if you grew up in a really small town or you go to a really small school. So I kind of wanted to explore those friendships and recreate like that, a friend group like that. And also because I'm like a teenager of the 90s, like the 90s were like my glory days or whatever. Like,
Yes, same.
yeah. So it's like, I really wanted to also write something that was kind of deeply entrenched in that
Oh, I love
mentality,
that. Yeah.
and also just to look at like a marriage that was in crisis, that wasn't like, because most of the marriages I'd written about people were already divorced, or, clearly the crack slipper marriage is a little different because it's set in like a old, antiquated time frame. I kind of wanted to write like through a marriage in crisis. So that kind of all just evolved into this idea of this family court attorney who's kind of in this crisis in her marriage, and her first love comes back, tells her that her best friend is missing, but they've been estranged for a long time. And so she has to kind of decide, like, am I going to go back into this, give up my marriage and my family and go back into this relationship with this person that I never really got over? Or am I going to try to stick it out with my marriage while she's trying to solve this mystery of like what happened with her friend? And so it goes back and forth, and she has psychic powers. I've done fairy tale retellings, I've done ghosts. She has like psychic powers, see the past and the future. And so that kind of is woven throughout. And it alternates between kind of a 2015 type of time frame to back to the 90s.
Do you keep in touch with the two friends from freshman year that inspired it?
Yeah, I do. Now their kids are way young. This is Tipsy.
Hi.
She was named after.
And a
Tipsy.
chicken was named after your character, right?
This one is Tipsy. She's named after Tipsy Collins, right?
Didn't someone send you, like, they have a chicken and they named it Tipsy
Yes.
Collins? Yes.
That was the craziest thing. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like famous. Somebody named their chicken Tipsy Collins. Like, that's wild.
Huge.
Yeah.
You do keep in touch. Like, do they know that they inspired the most recent book?
Yes, they do.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
they do know that. And then my other friend lives like way on the country. So, I mean, we don't see each other that often. We
Right.
probably see each other like twice a year, maybe. But when we do, it's just like no time has ever passed.
Are they flattered that they inspired?
I think
the
so.
book?
Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope they feel like it's like true, kind of true to like their life, because it really is like a testament to my admiration for like, their friendships and how they kind of brought me into their circle during a kind of difficult time.
Well, thank you so much. Where can everyone find you?
So I feel like these days I'm mostly on Instagram and TikTok. I mean, and I kind of vacillate. Maybe I'm on Instagram a little bit more than TikTok, but I feel like I then end up like posting in spurts. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start doing TikTok all the time.
Same.
And I'll, you do like 3 or 4 videos and you're like, yay. And then you're like, and then another 2 weeks will go by and I haven't posted anything.
I like forget I have TikTok. Right.
I know.
It's terrible. So is it your handle, Stephanie Alexander?
It's Stephanie Alexander Books.
Perfect. And I'll put this all in the show notes.
Thank you so much for listening to Signs from the Other Side. You can find me, Fern Ronay, on all social media at Fern Ronay, Ronay. I love hearing from you and I love hearing your stories of signs. And if you would like to hear more episodes of this show, please be sure to subscribe in Apple Podcasts. Thank you again and sweet dreams.